If you are a bear right now, you have got to be shitting it. Now, a bear is a short seller who potentially have came in at about the weekend surge at about 125k ish, right? That would have been a good time for the bears to come in because I've been on the short seller side, and that looked like it was going to be a potential top with divergence for Bitcoin. Okay, if you guys don't know divergence, it is a very important signal on one of the indicators, which includes the RSI, which I've been using for the last 5+ years, has been very effective. If you guys learn the RSI, that will give you guys a huge edge in this market in predicting reversals. Okay, because when you see a divergent signal, it is likely that it's going to reverse. However, there has been exceptions, right? Especially on the higher time frames and especially on major breakouts like back in December 2020, November of last year, November 2024. Remember that breakout was a decent breakout, where we went from about I think 70 something k to I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like 80 something. Okay, just over the weekend. And of course December 2020, October 2017, right? Those were the times where these divergence signals have been invalidated, but usually they tell you that there's going to be a reversal. So that's why it made sense for the bears to come in as a last defense. There may be one more wave at the top trend line here at about 129k now. This is a bearish pattern, a rising wedge pattern. However, if the bears get liquidated here, I would expect to see a significant pump out of Bitcoin. And why is Bitcoin important is because it is still the driver of this crypto market. If you guys don't know, because you guys are new to this market, that is a very important fact to know. I am long on Bitcoin. I am long on quite a bit of the altcoins here. So you guys, these are my opinions on this market, right? I am bullish on this market, and of course, these are just my opinions only, like the entirety of this video, and not financial advice. You guys gotta form your own opinions and strategies. Okay, so this is a very important chart to be paying attention to because if we break out of what it looks like right now, 129k, that is gonna be significant for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto markets, and will really clear this thing up. But right now, we do have bearish divergence on Bitcoin. But let me show you guys another chart here. This is Toto, right? Which basically takes into consideration of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Toto 3. And we don't have bearish divergence on this weekly time frame. So this tells me there's a little bit of a divergence here, not in terms of the RSI, but the literal meaning divergence, because it's showing me something different here on this total chart comparing to Bitcoin. Now, this takes into consideration of Ethereum and all altcoins. This tells me either one asset, either Ethereum is going to break out or Bitcoin is going to invalidate its bearish divergence, and we all break out together, which includes the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Toto 3. Either that, or I think only Ethereum is going to break out. One of those scenarios is true because if we actually take a look into Ethereum charts, there is no divergence on this weekly time frame, right? I only see a falling wedge pattern, actually, that the bears got trapped because they thought they were going to break down from this falling wedge pattern, right? It wicked back into the pattern, increasing the buying volume. And there is no divergence here, as we have seen, comparing to Bitcoin, right? And Toto 3, there is divergence. So if you guys are following what I'm saying, you guys get my scenario analysis, okay? And for Ethereum here, the price target is going to be about just short of 5,400. Price targets are estimates only. There could be more, there could be less. Very much depends on still what happens with Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin dumps, still, this Ethereum setup may not matter as much. We're going to be taking a look into a few altcoin setups too later in this video. I know that was already a lot of talking, but we're going to be taking a look into Terra Luna Classic, ANKR Network, Stronghold, see what's happening with these coins later in this video. also going to be taking a look into some news first. Some major news that could affect the markets. Some amusing news that could be entertaining as well. Let's go ahead and get into the news before getting back into the charts. All right. This is by You Today. 12.5-year-old dormant Bitcoin address back to life after 82,000-ish percent profit. Whenever I see news like this, it's just like, I'm just wondering, like, if this person is either that dumb or are they that rich that they just didn't care and probably tossed their account somewhere under their mattress or something and just discovered that they're in profits. It's amusing, okay? Next piece is by Dow Jones Newswire. Bitcoin price trades just shy of record high. Basically, we have already broken through the all-time high in the weekend on Saturday night here Pacific Standard Time. So let's see what happens. Does Bitcoin actually break out of this rising wedge pattern? Because probability-wise, rising wedges tend to break down. Okay, so let's see. But if you actually break to the upside, that's going to be significant. I would expect a significant move because of possible short squeeze. How shutdowns fuel crypto rallies, barons.com. I really think this rally is going to be based off the Federal Reserve rate cuts, right? That just started back in September. Because if you guys remember, if you guys have been around since last year, I think December was when Fed decided to stop rate cuts, and the market did not take that well. And it took us almost a year here to come all the way back full circle, right? Let's come over here. Let's take a look into the CME watch tool as well. All right, CME watch tool still loading. Let me see what the probabilities are for a rate cut. I'm sure it's not really changed much. Okay, this thing is having it is having a little bit of a difficulty loading. I don't want to waste time loading, but if you guys want to actually see the probabilities of a rate cut for October, you guys can go to cmegroup.com for interest rates, and you guys can get a pretty good compass where the market could be heading, because if we're going to get rate cuts, that's going to drive cheaper money into the markets, into risk-on assets, as we have seen back in 2021, back in the 2010s. You guys know that the market has been crazy. If there are any veterans out here. All right, next one is by Coinpedia. Trump claims virtually no inflation as market hits record highs. What do you guys think? Is there inflation in the markets? I really don't care. As long as we're getting a good market here. Okay. Let's go to the next piece. Next piece is by ZY Crypto. Scarcity magnet to pull Bitcoin price to $1 million before mega bull run ends. Analyst plan B. I really don't think we're going to get to $1 million for Bitcoin, because not this bull cycle, at least. I think we're probably going to end up in somewhere in the 200s. And then we're going to have a correction. And then I think maybe in the long term, yeah, that's very possible. But I don't think in this bull cycle. All right, next is by BNB to $2,000. Is the BNB price rally different this time? Where is BNB at right now? Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look. I don't doubt that these altcoins are gonna be surging like crazy, okay? Because I've seen it in the last bull cycle. But if you guys are asking me for a target, right, a prediction to put a solid price number on a specific date or month, I can't really tell you that, because that's not what technical analysis tells me. Technical analysis tells me, given that price action has been running within a certain range, which direction is the price likelier to go. And we could put a price target on it. but price targets are still estimates only, right? There could be a lot of hype that jacks up the price when the time is due. Okay, so you can't really predict that, right? But of course, if this bull cycle goes on, this bull cycle continues, I do expect a lot of these altcoins to surpass their price targets. I've seen that back in 2021. Okay, let's go ahead and go to altcoins. We're going to be taking a look into Terra Luna Classic. Terra Luna Classic, what's happening with Terra Luna Classic here? So I mentioned last time, this is the weekly time frame. Falling wedge pattern, still intact. Okay. Falling wedges, you guys should definitely learn how to charts. If there's any takeaways from watching these videos, don't just take away the price targets because, I mean, you could see that once, right? It could get invalidated, right? But I think the main takeaway is to learn the basics of technical analysis, which is basically charting and learning how to read some of these indicators, right? You guys can pick your preferred indicator and learn how to read it well, right? Charting and picking indicators that you guys can prefer to read and learn it well, right? I have very simple indicators, the RSI, which is not messy at all, right? And just charting, which is also pretty basic once you guys get more hands-on drawing trend lines, okay? And I think just knowing these skills will get you ahead in this bull cycle. You will probably do a lot better than the average because the average lose money, okay? The average traders lose money, okay? I barely learned the basics, just right before the last bull cycle, and I still have came away with some profits. Of course, I'm looking to make a lot more this time. Let's go ahead and go back to Terra Luna Classic here. This is the weekly time frame. Okay, price target still. I'm gonna go ahead and move this price target a little down along this upper trend line here, just to give it more time to play out, right? Because it's still an estimate. Let's just say if it breaks out by this point now, for example, price target would still be about 0.0003 price target for Terra Luna Classic. Now, it is still running within this pattern here. Okay, last time I said there was a possible cup and handle pattern. I think that could still be intact on a higher time frame. Not on the weekly time frame because I don't see a rounded bottom anymore, right? Because some of these lows have been getting lower, right? However, I do see a smaller falling wedge pattern here. I'm going to go ahead and invalidate that possible cup and handle scenario, but I still see a falling wedge pattern here, a smaller falling wedge pattern, and the price target for the smaller falling wedge pattern would be about 0.000074 if it breaks out by this point. Now, price targets are estimates only. There could be more, there could be less. It's very much going to depend a lot on what's happening with Bitcoin. Because if Bitcoin starts dumping, these altcoin setups, they're not going to matter very much. Let's go ahead and go to ANKR Network. ANKR Network, you guys will see the falling wedge scenario with a lot of these altcoins because it tells you that after an extensive downtrend on that time frame, right, that the price target or price action is likely to be reversing, okay? And you guys will see that with a lot of altcoins because these altcoins have been getting beat up, right, since basically March, April of last year. It's been a long time. And this is a falling wedge pattern for ANKR. Let's just say if it breaks out by this point, okay, for example, price target is going to be about just right above 10 cents here for ANKR Network. Now, even though falling wedges have a higher chance of breaking to the upside, you have to also mind the downside risk as well, because we're all just talking about probabilities here, okay? Nothing in this market is 100%. I've seen falling wedges break down. I've seen breakouts that don't meet their price targets. Just gotta be considering those scenarios. Now, zoom into the daily time frame for ANKR. This is a falling wedge pattern. Okay. Now, I just want to say that there has been some patterns on these coins that I may have invalidated because new data has come in, and either the price action has met its price target or has invalidated their previous patterns I talked about. You guys can check my previous videos for reference. Now, this is a falling wedge pattern. Again, price target, if it breaks out by this point here, for example, price target would be about 1.95 cents price target. Quite a bit of resistance along the way, including your daily moving averages, including your daily 200 SMA, which is the orange line here. Some things to be paying attention to because resistance is where you would expect a pullback, especially on the first time touching the resistance. All right, this is Stronghold. What's happening with Stronghold? Okay, it's been running in a downtrend. However, it's been running within a falling wedge here. Okay, since back in mid-August. Now there is a falling wedge pattern here for Stronghold. Like I said, you guys should learn how to chart your falling wedge patterns. It's basically a tightening channel, a tightening triangle, right? The degree of tightening could vary, right? It could be very flat on the tightening, or it could be very tightening like this one, which will give me more sense of where the possible breakout or breakdown may be. Right now, price target for here would be about 3.1 cents for Stronghold. There is quite a bit of divergence on this daily time frame, bullish divergence, which usually means that there's going to be a reversal to the upside. Now, daily 200 SMA, that's going to be support. The next key support I'll be looking at if this price action continues downwards, and see if that support holds. Now, this basically wraps it up for this video for Stronghold, ANKR Network, Terra Luna Classic. Let me know if you guys want to continue seeing any more of these coins by dropping a like, comment, subscribe, or any other coins in this market. And I'll pick a request to do for you guys on a daily basis. I'll see you on the next one.